Hey everybody, welcome to the Healing Hearts and Awakening Souls podcast. If you're joining me from the Healing Hearts and Awakening Souls Facebook group, you are getting to watch this live. So just letting anyone in the audience know that I am now recording these live in my free Facebook group, which you are welcome to join. And so today I'm going to continue the conversation and kind of pick up where we left off last week. So last week I did the episode called The Darker Side of the Healing Journey, something along those lines. Darker Side of the Healing Process, something like that. Sorry if the lighting's not great. I wanted to be outside. And I am personally talking about this because it's what I am personally going through. And I feel like I'm going to reiterate some of the things I talked about last time, but with like a more refined frequency to it. And I'm going to open up with the same concept I tried to open up with in the last episode, and then I got completely sidetracked, and then ended up coming back. But I just feel like it's really important to share this part, and that is that last week I shared that I've been going through at this point it's probably been 6 weeks or so, maybe, about 6 weeks of just a really deep healing, purging and clearing phase that I've been personally going through. And last week in the episode I shared that I finally felt like I was I felt like I was still in it, but I was at least feeling light enough or confident enough to record a podcast episode, which I haven't really been recording podcasts. I haven't been going live. I haven't even really been posting that much because I've been going through my own process of my healing work, my inner healing work that I feel like I came here to do. So part of that is my work, and part of that is the collective energy that I feel like I also help to heal and clear as I'm moving through my own stuff. And I also believe many of you are doing that as well, whether you're conscious of it or not. I'm not necessarily conscious of it. I'm just aware of it through my claircognizance of just knowing that it's happening, but it's not like I'm consciously like, oh, I'm processing, my son's so-and-so. So I feel like anyone that is drawn to this kind of work is here to help clear collective energy, to help heal timelines, to help heal ancestral wounds, to help heal generational patterns, right? We can look at this from a logical, conscious lens. We can look at it from a spiritual lens. We can look at it from all different dimensions and aspects. But those that are drawn to doing this kind of work, and what does that mean? It means willing to look inward, willing to say, there's something more beyond what we can typically see and feel and hear and sense with our human perceptions. And we also recognize that it's possible that our own perceptions might be skewed and may not be the only way to see things, right? There's layers of truths taking place. So those that are drawn to this work, that are willing to say, hey, I'd like to learn more about who I am, what am I here for, what's my mission, who am I beyond this human body, right? We're drawn, that's why I say drawn to this kind of work. And it's not fun work. It's not glamorous work. So, it's funny, when I first started doing this kind of work, I got into life coaching. Well, even before that, I went to school for counseling. I have a master's degree in counseling services. I've always been interested in this kind of thing. And I think it goes back to my own experience with depression in my teenage years. I was really curious about mental health and, what makes people happy or sad, what makes people okay or not okay. All of these things that were very interesting to me, and there's a lot of different reasons for that, but one of them being because I literally came here to learn more about the human journey, the human process. Good morning, Tiffany. How are you? It's so good to see you. My soul wanted to come here and learn more about this human process and to participate in it, and I surely did, right? So, when I, just to kind of like broaden the perspective a little bit, when I talk about this deep healing, purging phase that I just went through, I believe that all of us that come here to do this kind of work will go through these, have gone through these, may have yet to go through these, maybe are going through these, and there will be ones that go deeper than others. And when I say deeper, my perspective is that we go deeper into the vibrational fabric that makes up this third dimensional reality. And we are here to go deep into that fabric and to like clear it out, right? Raise the vibrancy of it, raise the frequency of it, clear out the density. And again, I said this last week, not because it's right to do that and it's wrong to have low vibrational energies. We really want to keep reminding ourselves that it's the dualistic thinking of the human experience that gets us into so much trouble. It keeps us separated, right? So we can have the perception and the understanding that this feels different than that. Oh, this feels lighter, this feels heavier. But we want to try to continue to remove ourselves from the thinking of this is right, this is wrong, because that just keeps us in a state of judgment, right? And that really stalls out our awakening journey and our ability to connect, which is ultimately, I think the soul mission ultimately for many of us is to remember our oneness and reconnect with that unified grid that we do through our heart portals. That's the way I see it anyways, and there may be other ways of doing it that resonate more with you. It doesn't matter. But I say this because I don't know why it's so important, but it just keeps needing to be said that wherever you are in your journey is perfect. Good morning, Brad. So good to see you on this morning. Good. I was going to get into that too. They are definitely feeling lighter on my end too. But wherever you're at in your journey, right? So Brad just said, oh, feeling better on my end. And I was going to share that for myself. But even if things are feeling heavier for you, right? Sometimes it's the energies. And I feel like the eclipse energies came in and really rocked the boat for a lot of us. But maybe not for everybody, right? And maybe for those that it really rocked the boat for, they're starting to feel a little bit lighter, right? But then maybe something happened, I know of a few people in my life who have had some pretty traumatic things happen in their recent days, so to speak. And their boat's getting rocked now by external things, right? So sometimes it's the external that can rock our boat. And even though we're on the spiritual journey and we understand detachment and we understand that there's so much more and we understand the bigger picture, there are things that happen in our actual physical lives that are gonna rock our boat. We're not immune to the human experience. We came here for it. We're meant to participate in it. We're meant to feel all those emotions, not to be immune to them. So wherever you're at, and I think that the reason that this message keeps coming through so powerfully and strongly is because what really wants to be shared is this tendency for us to judge ourselves with whatever we're going through or experiencing, and to really encourage us to release that judgment. Wherever you are is perfect because that's where you are. I used to talk about this all the time. It's like when you're watching a movie and you're in the middle of the movie, do you get angry that you're not already at the end of the movie? No, you're excited about where you're at in the movie. You're excited to see what's going to happen next. You're excited to see how this is going to play out. How is the character going to respond? You want to see what's going to happen in that moment of the movie. But we, in our human experience, we're judging ourselves and we're like, well, why am I not at the end of the movie yet with a happy ending? Where's my happy ending? And we get a little impatient. Sorry, there's a mosquito. So I guess I feel like that's a really important reminder right now, because there's still a lot of judgment in a lot of our fields around, am I doing this right? Am I doing this fast enough? Am I doing it well enough? Am I awakening enough? Why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? No, I didn't talk in here about manifestation. I talked in the Cosmic Souls community group about, manifestation has been coming up in a lot of conversations lately. Our frustrations with not feeling like we're manifesting maybe what we want as quickly as we want. And that was a rude awakening for me with the full moon energies. And what came through, we did a Reiki healing, a group Reiki healing in the Cosmic Souls community on Monday. And what came through really powerfully was this message around really releasing our painful stories. So our painful stories, hi Charles, so good to see you on this morning. I don't even know if it's morning anymore. It's probably afternoon at this point. But releasing our painful stories. So our painful stories, I use these terminologies all the time, and sometimes I take for granted that everybody knows what I mean when I say them. But our painful stories often feel like our truth. They feel like the reasons that XYZ isn't happening, or I can't have XYZ, or I can't be or do XYZ, they feel like the truth. And we'll hear ourselves thinking or saying well, if you would just do this, then I could do that, or if this would just work out, then this could happen. And it's like we're reporting the news. These are our stories. And they often have painful, limiting beliefs, and energetic core wounds at the root of these painful stories. And so, as an example, they might oftentimes won't even necessarily feel connected, right? It takes a very, how do I want to say this? It all ties together, but if we can, okay, so the message that came through around releasing the painful stories was that in order for us to eventually be able to actually release them, the very first step is that we just have to stop reiterating them and giving them our energy, and therefore we strengthen and we empower them every time that something happens. And in our minds, or somewhere within our mental field or our emotional field, we're like, oh, there it is again. See, this always happens. I knew, this is the way it always goes. Something along those lines, where we're feeling like it's a repeated pattern, and oftentimes there's a victim mentality to it, right? Like I can't be, do, or have something, and we often see it as either an external cause, or we will feel it as an internal limitation of ours that keeps us from being, doing, or having whatever it is that we want. In order for us to heal these painful stories that we consciously and unconsciously tell, probably way more than we even realize, is to practice some sort of, mindfulness meditation where we can actually achieve a state of neutrality. Might also feel like peace. I teach this with the 0 point, heart coherence. For me, it's all about the heart portal and connecting to that heart portal, because that leads us, to me, that's my connection to all that I am, all that is, the source of all creation, my guides, my higher self, the quantum field, manifestation, all of it. So for me, it's always about coming into the heart space and connecting to that remembrance. It's like plugging in and being like, oh yeah, I remember. So what has been but I want to kind of merge these two concepts, like this message that came through around this full moon that we just had with releasing our painful stories, which sounds beautiful. It's like, yeah, let's do that. But it's actually really, really hard. And it's often very painful because it often involves ego death, like I mentioned in the last episode. And those ego deaths can be incredibly painful because at the core of an ego death, there's a part of you that's desperately hanging on for dear life and saying, no, I can't let go. My human won't be safe. I cannot let go. And so we're gently like peeling our fingers back and being like, no, really, it's okay to let go, right? And so there's this kind of internal battle going on. And I could feel that with these energies that came in. There was some arguments that happened with my husband and I really was able to sit with it and just observe. Okay, in all fairness, I got caught up in the arguing for a little while. Then took a little, break and got some distance and was able to reflect back and see how it was just these same old stories trying to prove themselves to me. See, this is true. See, you can't have this. See, you can't be this happy. See, you can't have X, Y, Z. It's always about something that we feel like is out of our reach, and we're buying into this idea that we're somehow victims and that we're separate, that we're not creators. Albeit, right, we always have to put everything into context because we are co-creating in this very dense human experience. But we can hold both, right? We can hold the remembering that we are so much more, that we are so powerful, and the remembering that, yes, we are so much more and so powerful, but we're trying to do it in this very dense environment. And so there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, but we're in charge of how much we practice creating more wiggle room for our manifestations, for ourselves. And also, just a point on manifestation, since I'm talking about it, I realize I sometimes I go on a lot of different tangents. So if you guys stay with me, God bless you. But the thing about manifestation right now, especially, is that yes, it's happening faster because we have been clearing so much dense energy. So there's just a lot more pure intention, purer intentionality, but And this was a message that came through for me personally when I was getting frustrated. And then this energy and this message came in around releasing old stories, is that we're right now, it feels like we are being encouraged to manifest along our soul's timeline, like our higher self timeline. And we're being encouraged, along with the ego death, is this releasing and detaching from our ego's desires and manifestations. And they might look a little different, but in the interim, in the transition of us shifting and releasing more of our ego, allowing more of our old stories to die and those ego parts of us to die, and not all of our ego parts, right? Only the ones that are hanging on so tightly that we don't have the freedom to create from a more expansive soul place. And so our soul and our higher self has these really beautiful storylines that are wanting to play out, right? And so as we're releasing the ego parts of us, and as things might be happening in our external, and as these energies are coming in and forcing, these energy shifts, and oftentimes that will be reflected in our external reality, we might be seeing and experiencing things that are like going against what we are wanting to create from the human perspective. And it might be really frustrating. It might be really disappointing. We might be really confused. I went through a lot of this. And the message that kept coming through was, find the neutrality in all of this. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. Find the neutrality. And if you can find the neutrality, now you're accessing the quantum field of infinite potential. And from that place, there you can manifest more than your human has even been able to comprehend at this point. When I say that out loud, it sounds kind of grandiose, and I don't really like to make this kind of stuff sound so it almost sounds like not superficial, but like too good to be true. So I personally have a hard time with some of the messages that have been coming through lately, and I've been sharing that in the Cosmic Souls community too. Like my human is like kind of here right now, and my higher self is like, come on, catch up. This is what's real, and you're way down here. So I wanted to talk about this too. I feel like I'm down here again because I've been going through this very deep healing phase, and it's all divine, and again, as I mentioned, I thought these eclipse energies were really going to activate a lot of expansion for me, and I feel like they have. I just didn't realize that part of that expansion. I don't know why I didn't realize it, because it's like, duh, of course, isn't this the way it always works? But in order for that expansion to happen, there was a massive contraction. I think I thought I already went through the contraction, and so I was just going to get to expand, but apparently I had more contracting to go. I do deep down believe that we expand to the extent that we contract. So this should be a good thing eventually, right? But right now I feel like I have like baby legs. Like what I said in the Cosmic Souls community was, I feel like I'm like a baby bird. Like I've been reborn. I've had a rebirth of sorts, and I feel like I'm a baby bird, and I'm like, I keep trying to fly out of the nest, and then I fall back, and then I fly a little bit, and so I get these moments where I'm like, ooh, I think I'm okay, but then something happens, and it pulls me right back down. And so I'm still feeling very vulnerable and tender. I sat here for probably like 10 minutes having to talk myself into coming live on here, which maybe was like me years ago, but in the past few years I really have done so much work on the whole like being public and speaking and sharing and going live, that that's not really like me. So I'm still, I'm still getting a feel for this, and I don't even know what to call it, because the energies felt so intense for me when I was in the deep healing phase, and now that I feel like I'm coming out of it, I've thought I would feel different, but I don't really feel that different. But what that tells me logically is that it's because I've integrated the energies. So anyways, I feel like we're all, again, you probably either have gone through something like this, you will go through something like this, or you are going through something like this. But what is important, again, is to stop judging our journey, to stop judging our process, to really trust ourselves. And that's so hard to do when we're in, these darker phases, these darker periods. I would call it a dark night of the soul. I mean, I feel like that's what I have gone through, and I feel like many people that are close to me have been going through. Again, I feel like it's to catapult us into something really beautiful on the other side of it, but it's been really heavy and dense. And so, again, today I was like, I don't want to go live. I really don't want to. I always think like, do I even really have anything to say? But I just was urged that, other people may be going through this, and maybe if you're not now, will be going through this. Awesome. Thank you for your comment, Brad. That means a lot. Yeah. Another thing that I shared in last week's episode was talking about, when we do go through these deep healing phases, or we're just going through our awakening journey in general, speaking up, speaking our truth, sharing our experiences, being vulnerable, these are huge steps in our awakening. It's accessing the truth of who we are, and having a willingness, whether it's a tentative willingness, or a confident willingness to share it. And I feel like when we do that, as those that have come here to bring in the light, to bring in this new way of doing things, these new codes, this new language, this new vibrancy, this new frequency, when we do that, we're breaking down the programming that says it's not safe, or that says that nobody cares, or that says that, who are you to say such and such? All of this programming is part of what keeps us small and keeps our lights dim. And we're here to shine bright. We're here to shine bright. But it's a whole process of remembering that and trusting that, and going through whatever we came here to go through, to whatever lower vibrational programming or traumas or energies we came here to help to heal. It's a matter of us going through all of that, whatever it is. And some of us came in with a lot, and some of us didn't, and it doesn't matter. There's no judgment either way, right? We're all doing our part. We're all doing something. And so when we break down those barriers and we say, you know what, I'm going to show up. I even sat here and I was like, well, I can't go live here because the lighting's not good. Or I can't go live here because I don't want the pool to show, or I don't want the fence to show. Like, these are the things going on in my head. And finally I'm like, no, you just need to go live. It doesn't matter. I post this in Spotify, for example, as a video, and I'll put it on my podcast, and I'll have thoughts of like, well, other people don't do podcast videos with such bad lighting or such weird backgrounds, but who cares? Deep down I know that I didn't come here to be like everybody else, and if you're watching this, then you likely didn't either. We came here to break the mold. We came here to show up and to shine bright and to be who we are, regardless of what other people are thinking or saying or doing. We came here to do it a little different. We came here to do it in our own unique way, with our own unique flavor. So nobody can tell us that we're doing it right or wrong, right? We get to do it however it feels good to us. And that can be, shining your light and doing your service work, can be showing up on social media and doing videos, or it can be, loving the hell out of your children or your family or the people closest to you and shining your light in that way. Like, there's a million different ways that we can shine our light, and there's no one way that's better or worse or more or less, because I do truly believe, and this is what I keep telling myself, is that regardless of how many people I reach or what I'm actually doing, I'm shining my light just by being me. And yes, that can be looked at as, being me in the world, and people see me and people respond to me. But I also just feel like it's an underlying energetic frequency that I give off. And people are not consciously aware of that, and that's okay. People aren't consciously aware of like, oh, there's Kara, she gives off a good high vibrational frequency. I joke with my family and I try to tell them and be like, look at all this work I'm doing. And they do actually kind of get it, surprisingly, sometimes. But I believe that those that are drawn to this work, that do feel like, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for something more. I might not know exactly what that is. It doesn't matter. I believe you're doing it just by being here. Again, we have this very thick, dense veil between our consciousness, our human consciousness, and our soul's awareness. So I feel like we're doing so much in this lifetime that we're not consciously aware that we're doing. And so it's just as simple as like find what brings you joy and do it. I've been spending so much time in my garden because my garden and my plants give me joy. I love flowers. I love planting vegetables. I can't wait till I can actually eat my vegetables out of the garden. I feel like nature has the original blueprint. And when we are in nature, when we access nature, when we connect with nature, it is filling us up with very high vibrational energy. And so, any time that you can spend in nature, it's very, they say it's very grounding, go plant your feet on the ground. It's grounding. It allows you to ground into, this earth. So if you're very, like in your head a lot, a lot of thinking, a lot of anxiety, it probably means you're not breathing the energy through. You got to pull that energy down and breathe it through. Imagine you're breathing it through into the ground and then like back up through, whatever resonates for you. But it's about deeply breathing and pulling the energy through. So it's not all up here because we want to connect the head and the heart and also, the root. And if you need to be grounded into the earth, that's a very beautiful, supportive energy that's available to us. But we have to just close our eyes. It's just as simple as closing our eyes, breathing, and pulling your energy in. And you just do the best that you can, right? Because there's many of us that are like, I can't meditate. I can't do this. I can't do that. Do it for 5 seconds. For 5 seconds, stop what you're doing, go outside, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just imagine you're like pulling all of your energy in and down and through. And let that allow you to feel like you have grounded yourself here in the present moment. And that's where you access that peace that I was talking about, that sense of neutrality. Even if you can get it for 1 second, that's powerful. That's a powerful second of neutrality where you're accessing infinite potential because you're not in your head creating a story or a vibration with the thoughts and the beliefs that are based in your old programming that is that we're always reactivating. And that's what that message that came through for the full moon was, is to stop reactivating those old stories. And we can't, it's like our brain will be like, yeah, but then what do I do? What do I focus on? What's the answer? Our stories are creating a problem for us. And so we're trying to fix it or solve it or figure out what we're supposed to do or figure out what's wrong with us or why can't I do this or why can't I fix that? So it's not about finding the answer, but it's about being willing to release the old stories of what the problem is. That's what we're trying to release. We're trying to release the stories that we tell ourselves that will sound like the truth. They will sound like our reasons and our excuses and facts and truth. That's what they'll sound like to us. But yeah, and they might be a truth that exists in the world. Like we could say, well, yeah, but so-and-so is doing this to me and it's causing this. And that's why I can't have what I want, as an example. But all we're being asked to do is to release our grip on those same old stories that is the only truth. We have to just like surrender those stories in the moment and say, I just don't want to keep telling that story anymore, because when we tell the story, when we think it, when we experience something and in our mind we're like, oh yeah, there it is again, we're just strengthening those neural pathways. We're strengthening that perception, that truth, that, if everything is a perception, think of it as like an illusion that's like filtering your view. So we're saying, I no longer want to look through that filter. I would like to choose a different filter. And it's sometimes too much to say what the new filter is going to be, but we just have to be willing to release the old filter. That's enough. That's a big enough job in and of its own. That's an ego death. And as I mentioned, ego death can be very uncomfortable, painful, terrifying, right? We may get physically sick. We may, have an emotional or mental kind of freak out. I certainly did. Over this last 6 weeks, I had a couple of them because there were parts of me that I was desperately willing to release and let go of, that I no longer wanted to continue, like stories I no longer wanted to continue experiencing and believing. But we can consciously know that we want to let go of these old stories, but the process of actually doing it is not that straightforward, right? Because those stories are vibrational frequencies that are embedded in not only our energetic field, but in our physical bodies. And that's why sometimes we get physically sick, physical illness is often a way that we purge lower vibrational energies, right? It's both. It's yes, we probably got caught a cold from somebody, but it's also like divinely orchestrated to help us to release and purge and clear lower vibrational energies if we allow it to be. Now, the next step is, once we've gotten to the other side of that, are we going to fall back into the old stories? Are we going to keep telling the same old things? Or are we going to be willing to find a new pattern of perceiving, I guess, is the best way to put it. A new way of seeing things. And there's always multiple layers of truths, always. So it can be this and it can be that. It doesn't have to be either or. Again, back to that, like the dualistic thinking is what gets us in trouble and keeps us separated from ourselves, each other, the world, nature, our bodies, right? That dualistic thinking. The soul self and the higher self are so much more forgiving. They're not looking at us and saying like, you did this right or you did this wrong. It's all an experience. And, I was thinking about this the other day, like when our intuition is telling us to do something, it's not because the other way of doing it is wrong. I actually think that we have lived we've lived our lifetimes many times. So there's different like fractals of our consciousness that are experiencing this particular lifetime, this particular life that we're in right in this moment. And so the reason my intuition after I get off this call might be to tell me to go, run to the store, and I run into somebody that I haven't seen in 10 years. Well, the reason that my intuition led me in that direction was just because in this timeline, that was the direction my soul wanted to go. But maybe in a different timeline, I would have done something else, or I would have, married somebody else, or had a different number of children, or lived in a different state, or whatever. And none of it's right or wrong. It's just different. So when we pull back and we try to release that judgment, it helps to kind of loosen up some of these old stories and create some softer edges around them, I feel like. Because again, this energy is a very white knuckling energy. I've been talking about this with my soul sisters and in the Cosmic Souls community. We've been kind of white knuckling some things, but that's because we're just at this point where there's some really painful stories. They're big. They've played probably a very big part of our life, but we're ready to release them. And last week I talked about, how we've probably done a lot of work around some of these stories, but there's just these little glass shards that are left. And it's the extraction of those little glass shards. They're so tiny, but they're so painful because it's that last piece, right? It's that last piece saying, it's okay to let go. But again, it's our ego that's saying, yeah, but are you sure we're going to be safe? Are you sure it's going to be okay? Are you sure that we're going to be able to get by? What if we're wrong? All those things. All right. So I totally went in a different direction than where I thought I was going to go. That's okay. So we're all, again, we're all on our own journey. The other thing I did want to mention, though, is that, yes, we're all on our own journey, and we may or may not have been going through some of these things, but I do feel very strongly that there is a large number of light workers, way showers, starseeds, healers, helpers, whatever, however you want to, identify yourself as, just somebody here to help raise the frequency of the planet. I feel like there's a large number that has been being prepared for, I really do feel like we're about to step into something, a much more positive. I just feel like there's a large group of us that has been clearing a lot of heavy shit. And we came here for it, but that didn't mean it was easy. And it didn't mean that we remembered that we came here for it and that we understood it completely. Like it could have been a completely unconscious process of just things happening, one thing after another, a lot of people leaving the physical or earth plane, so dealing with loss and but also just being sensitive and empathic and just feeling this heavy collective dense energy. And I feel like we've really moved a massive amount of that. And so I really do feel like things are going to start improving now. I felt a shift in the energy after the full moon, me personally. It sounds like some others of you also felt that. So I am hoping that is a sign for the collective in general, although keeping in mind that we're always going to still continue to see that bifurcation of those that are awakening and those that are refusing to awaken and wanting to stay stuck in the old programming. Because it's kind of like when you have this opportunity to release old stories, it's like saying, am I going to keep telling the same old story? Well, if I do, I'm choosing to stay stuck in the third dimension. If I'm choosing to continue to see this as I'm a victim, I can't get what I want, I can't get past this thing, then versus being willing to just surrender that story. And that's where I feel like I am right now. I feel like I am attempting to surrender some really painful stories. And what that feels like is it's uncomfortable. It's kind of an emptiness, it's kind of a void, and it's kind of a, I don't really know, but it's not bad, if that makes sense. But again, I've worked at this for a long time, training my brain to be okay with this in-between space, this neutral space. Most of us are so deeply programmed to be in the negative direction, to worry, to have anxiety, to figure out what's going wrong so that we can fix it, right? I think it's like 5 to 1. We are naturally, our brains are even designed to focus on the negative. So we really do actually have to train our brain even to just be neutral, let alone focus on the positive. So it does take practice, but for me, it's all about connecting to the heart space. And when I find myself in a moment where I'm doubting or stressing or whatever, maybe I think I said something wrong, or I did something wrong, or I did something stupid, I go to my heart and I connect to my heart and I breathe. And I do my heart coherence, which is really basically just, the way that the Heart Math Institute describes it is to think of something that you're like really grateful for. So it might be like, I always used to think of like my kids sleeping because that was like the happiest, whatever that means, my kids sleeping. But now I can just connect to now I can just connect to the feeling because it's kind of a muscle memory for me now. I've practiced it so much. But you get kind of that high vibration, you get that like pulsation in your heart. It doesn't matter what you feel or what you don't feel. And when you first practice it, you're going to feel like you're not doing it or you're doing it wrong. Just keep doing it anyways. But that's how I access kind of that neutral place. And so whenever I find myself in a negative headspace, I practice that. I shouldn't say whenever, because that's not true. There are times where my ego is being stubborn and I'm in a negative headspace and I choose to stay there. And I choose to be mad at somebody or blame somebody or feel bad for myself or have a pity party or whatever. And then usually after a while, I'll snap out of it when I can. But there is an honoring of whatever is coming up, honoring emotions that maybe need to be processed and not being super quick to just shift out, right? Because there can be judgment there too. So, and that's what I really talked a lot about last week, was really giving yourself permission to feel these heavy feelings. Because yes, many of us are here to process the density, and that means feeling it fully. It means feeling it fully and feeling the magnitude of it. If you guys are commenting, I was seeing some comments, but I haven't seen any in a while, so I just want to throw that out there. But that's fine. If you're not commenting, that's totally fine. I know last time I didn't see any of the comments till after I went back later, and I felt bad. So giving ourselves permission to have our process, to be in our process, that whatever we're experiencing is okay. It's okay in the sense that we don't need to judge ourselves. And it's also, it can also be okay in the sense if we want to feel like we're not okay, right? Like if we want to be like, no, this is a big deal and I'm going through something major, we're allowed to have those feelings as well. But just, and the other thing too, I feel like is important to say is that, I hate saying it like this, but it's all, okay, it's all like a test. Not like a test like can you pass or fail, but like an opportunity to practice strengthening our faith and trust in ourselves, in the process, in the universe, in God's source, whatever. And I often go back to like, well, why is that so important? Why does it matter? Why are we tested so much in this? But if we are all one and we're one with source, then it's really about believing in ourselves, which is about reconnecting with our own divinity and our own truth, which brings us all back into the 0 point moment, into this, now present moment, and acknowledging our connection and our connection with the unified grid and with everyone and everything around us. And so, and that concept I see as also being equal to, the unconditional divine love frequency. So it's everything, because that is what we are. That is what we are created from. So it's really just a matter of coming home, coming back home to who we are. That's what trusting in ourselves and trusting in the process and believing in ourselves is doing. It's bringing us back home. It's bringing us back home to the present moment, which is the ever now moment. And so we're pulling all of our energy back. And that is what this lifetime is about. Okay, beautiful, Brad. Have a great day. Okay, so I feel like that was the main message that wanted to come through. So I would love for you guys to share in the comments, what are you going through? What have you been experiencing? Have you been judging yourself? Have you been judging your journey? Have you been doubting your journey? I know I have, big time. And it's okay. It's not that we're not supposed to doubt. It's not that we're not supposed to question. It's can we hold space for our doubts and our questions and still believe in ourselves and hold space for our process. And then when we're coming out on the other side, all of that questioning and doubt served a purpose. I do believe that as we're doubting and questioning, those feelings and sensations, I feel like, are brought up because of the deep healing purging work that we're doing. It's almost like there's side effects or symptoms of doing that deeper healing work. Because when we're down there, again, it's as if we are moving further and further away from our connection to our higher power, to source, to ourselves, to all of it. So it's very brave and courageous for us to go into those depths of our shadows and do that deeper healing work to retrieve those lower vibrational energies that we came here to help heal and clear. In that process of going deeper and deeper, as I mentioned last week, we're essentially getting farther and farther away from our source of energy, our energetic source, and the source of all feeling of belonging and love. And so it's natural in that place to feel more separate, to feel more distance, to feel more alone, right? And so on the other side of that, as we do that deeper healing work, and then we come back out the other side, which we will do, there are new muscles that we have strengthened because of that work that we have done. And so on the other side, we have more faith, we have more trust in the whole process and in ourselves. Okay? Okay. I think that was everything. All right. Let me know how you guys are doing. And I love you all so much. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.